We have Rukshan in the green room.
Right on.
So should we bring him on
Ocean
straight
Grove.
away?
Yeah. Yep. Let's do it.
Good morning, good afternoon, Rukshan.
Oh,
you got some feedback happening there.
Hey, boys. Sorry I'm
how
late.
you going?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we're getting a double up. It's echoing.
Echo.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear us?
I can't hear you guys.
Oh, we can hear like an echo on your side. But you can't hear us.
Hello?
Hang on a second.
Echo.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Gone.
All right. We got
Perfect.
it. I think it's working now.
Yeah. No, sweet.
Sorry about that. Sorry if I'm a bit late as well joining in. Are you guys already live?
Yeah. We jump on and we play an intro and we muck around. Look, man, we're not the most professional.
Well, it looks like neither am I. So
man, you fit right in. It's all good. So yeah, we just sort of kicked it off and talk a bit of shit at the beginning just to sort of warm up, and then that way when you're ready, we all just fly in and off we go, man. But
yeah, man.
Yeah, I was just telling everybody I've actually been off for the last couple of weeks because I'm up in Cairns, far north Queensland, and we've been getting all the floods. Not as bad as Townsville, obviously, up here, but all the supermarkets are bare up here because the roads are all blocked off, and there's apparently 60 trucks full on their way, but they're all stuck in between towns where all the roads are broken, and I reckon all that food's probably going to go off in the back of them trucks.
I actually haven't been following that, but just been so engrossed in some stuff that's going on here, so that's pretty bad.
Man,
so is it pretty bad this time?
Look, it's for Townsville, it's pretty crook. Like a lot of people, for Ingham, there's a little town in between Townsville and Cairns, Ingham, and they went completely under. They're going to have to rebuild their whole town, so that's really devastating for them. Not many people have died, but a lot of people have lost their homes. But I mean that it's pretty crook, but it's it is what it is. It's the floods happen. There's not much you can do about it. Depending on where you live or whatever. But it's more the just seeing how it's all unfolding and the food and the big thing for me was watching the supermarkets empty out.
Yeah.
And luckily, I've been personally on the train for a while now, trying to steer away from the supermarkets. I've been going from farmers markets and direct butchers for a few reasons. One, the quality of meat is terrible, and two, I don't like to support the corporation, like those two corporations in particular. I wish everyone would just abandon them and they'd fall over really quickly within a week, I think. But so I was pretty good, but a lot of people have been caught with their pants down, and it's just sort of watching it happen in real time in sort of where I live unfolding is it kind of makes me worry for the future where we are so reliant on the shopping centres and sort of their food supply. Everyone's so reliant on it. So, yeah, it's pretty full on to see. But aside from that... Sorry, go.
No, I was going to say, I think, for a lot of people, that was a bit of a wake-up call a couple of years back when we realized how reliant we are on that supply chain. So, but I think, again, people have obviously forgotten about those things, and it's only when disaster strikes or something like this happens that the majority of the population actually even considers this as a possibility, but they never end up doing something about it. That's kind of the way I see it, because even I have the same thoughts in my mind about having extra stuff in the garage or something, and then I never end up doing it,
It's hard to it takes a lot of extra effort and thought, but plus also like the convenience. They're called convenience stores for a reason. It is really easy when you've got a busy life, man, and I mean on purpose. I think our lives are so busy. I think that's by design, that we're so busy we don't have time to look after ourselves correctly. and that's why all the things that are bad for you are just unavoidable. There's the seed oils and all the rest of it. It's so unavoidable. It's so hard. Every 10 minutes I turn around to my missus, we can't use sunscreen anymore. It's full of this chemical and that's full of that. And we can't use that oil. And are you drinking tap water? And she's just like, oh, fuck off. I need a break. And I'm like, we can't. It's cancerous.
Yeah, I don't go that far. I try to keep it pretty simple. I'm like a Donald Trump. I don't even think I drink water. I think I just drink like Coke. So I've kind of gone the Trump direction, but it's working out for me so far. So I'm feeling pretty good these days.
Man, it works for him, dude.
I read. Elon commented that Trump is just a machine who lives on cheeseburgers and Coke, but he's still just really switched on. I was just reading it the other day, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I have seen, where they're all in the plane and they got McDonald's, and I'm like, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's supposed to be, make America healthy again, is sitting there eating with them, and they're just as happy as a pig in mud.
You can forgive Robert Jr. just if he has one McDonald's meal once in a while, you can forgive him. That's all right. I think a lot of people made a big fuss about it, but I think he was just having a bit of fun.
Look, if Trump gives you a cheeseburger, you eat it. Otherwise he'll charge you a tariff. Just before we kick right off, man, what do you think about the sort of Australia tariff situation at the moment? Because Albanese sort of acted as if he was really going to have a chat, and it seems like it's all piss and wind.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we're focusing on obviously because we're in Australia, but the way that it kind of panned out, it was pretty much on everyone, really, and Australia was just kind of caught up in it. But, the way I see it, Trump is really using this as some type of, realignment of US dominance and just reminding people about his agenda and the way that he's going to approach things. And I think he wants to make world leaders uncomfortable. Like, you see here, we got Albo running around trying to set up a meeting with Trump. You got the opposition leader, Peter Dutton, going after Albo. You got all the media going after Albo. And it's this big thing. This one phone call about tariffs is like a huge story in Australia all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what Trump is doing, I think, around the world, is really putting people on notice, putting these world leaders on notice. Like this, I'm setting the agenda now. And it's America first. Let's forget about aluminium this time, or the product that they're tariffing. But he's really just making people kind of almost kiss the hand and just understand the relationship dynamics. And if you're an American and you're kind of a Trump supporter and this is what you voted for, they'll be like, this is what we voted for, this is what we wanted, and they'd be very happy with that. And I have seen some complaints on people like online that Rukshan, you're like gloating about Albanese struggling and it's bad for Australia and all these kind of things, and that's true. But at the end of the day, we also need to have a strong posture. We need to have strong leaders. We need to be in a relationship with the US where we might not find ourselves in a situation where, he's putting a tariff on us. Like, he's already made the phone call to our leader because we're in such a good relationship that he's like, hey, let's just do this in the back end. You guys don't need to be involved in this. So I think even Australia, the relationship is not there to the extent where Trump is like chummy with us,
Yeah.
He's really just setting the agenda and telling people, hey, I'm here. And, it is what it is. And I think it'll play out, especially with the election coming up in Australia. He doesn't know who's going to be the prime minister. They look into these things a little bit as well. And they know that Albanese himself, his tenure as the PM is not guaranteed to continue. So, how much, ass-kissing does Trump want to do?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get voted back in at all. I don't know. That just me. I think enough people have had a gutful of he just seems very soft on all the stuff. But yeah, look, I agree, man, and I think I agree too in what you say with the it sort of being like a bit of a dick swinging move where he's sort of reasserting his dominance more than actually wanting. Like there will be obviously a side effect where it'll job creation and American products for American people again, but it's a little bit of a like everyone's calling me, I'm not calling you kind of thing. And I think you're dead right, man. And I don't know that it'll last forever, or he'll want to cripple an economy over it. Yeah. Maybe Canada, but yeah, I think he'll
I mean,
sort of
that that kind of should have been a warning. Like what he did with Canada should have been a warning to the rest of the allies. Like especially, you can understand with maybe some of the South American countries where he doesn't have a good relationship because of immigration and things. But Canada, it's kind of more a part of the Western Alliance. And when he started doing that stuff with Canada, it should have put Australia on notice that something's coming up. Like maybe we could have preempted some of these things by going to Trump first and saying, hey, let's look at our relationship. Let's look at our trading relationship. Let's see how we can make this work for America and the US. And I think a lot of leaders didn't do that. And they just waited to see what Trump was going to do. And Trump just went all out and he said, I'm going to go after everyone. And, we come to the table. We'll make great new deals and it's going to be good for Australia. It's going to be good for America in the style that he does. And at the end of the day, I think this works out for us as well in some way. And right now, it's just political point scoring in Australia as well because the election's coming up, and everyone kind of wants to get their dicks in at Albo. And I'm doing that online. And I see a lot of people do that online. It's a bit of fun as well to kind of have a go at Albo because he's so hopeless. And you kind of imagine the phone call and Trump calling him a fine man or whatever he did. So all the visuals, like everything about that phone call and Albo and that whole thing is just we don't always get that in Australia. We don't have that excitement. So when you involve Trump and the Americans, it's a bit more interesting, isn't it?
It's full on. Look, from what I can gather too, I really think that on the short term, if these tariffs are introduced and Australia sort of has a bit of a stockpile of the aluminium and the steel, at the moment the timber industry, I'm a carpenter and a builder. The timber industry's in the toilet. Everything's cost so much, so everything's sort of switched to steel frame for new homes anyway. If anything, it'll mean that the surplus being sitting around in Australia will mean that steel prices will probably drop a little, and the cost, housing cost, will drop somewhat as well because of it. So it's not all bad, but there will be job losses, and they will have to go and see if they can, sell to China or whatever. If Trump holds on to the tariffs for too long and forces us out, then there will be that. But I see it as there could be a little bit of a positive in housing. New home prices might drop somewhat. Due to the material surplus.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, that would be a good side effect, definitely.
Very cool. Well,
just before we keep going, there's a few people, like usual, and this is part of the reason, Rukshan, we thought we'd have you 15 minutes late, because we always have dramas. And it's not just the technical side of things. We have suspected for a long time, and we're 100% certain, basically, that we've been shadow banned, especially YouTube.
We get chopped all the time.
We got shut down 3 times.
Shit.
Yeah, when we were live on Facebook. So we were talking about, what was it, Hunter Biden and the laptop.
Fair enough.
We're talking about Pizzagate the first time, and our feed got chopped and then deleted. Usually on StreamYard, even if the feed cuts, you've still got the video, but everything just disappeared. So that was fun. Just randomly chopped us as we were talking about Pizzagate. So we figured that it might be an algorithm thing, and you just can't say the word. We haven't tested out how many times you can say it. The
other time. So I just quickly want to say you can find us on X. That is going okay. WTF Rumble. I've tried to get it going. Can't do it. But Cafe Locked Out Rumble is going, so that's good. WTFX. Some people have problems on Facebook, but I was able to find it quite easily.
Facebook's all connected up. It should be fine. Yeah. It's just some people
it looks like,
personally have problems. Yeah, I don't know. And we can't really help with that. I want to, just before we go any further, I've just got to find it. I want to play a quick video.
Yeah.
Now it's one of you, an interview you had, but I saw this a while ago, and it just sort of hit me right in the fuck yeah kind of thing, and so I wanted to play it before we kind of kick off. But I thought that your answer to this question was awesome, and it's exactly everything that we sort of think and stand for as well. So I'm just going to play this.
Be doing what you're doing You're a smart guy. You run a great business. Sometimes there's a cost to your work, as you've seen online. It could be from the detractors or people seeking to undermine your efforts. Yet what it appears to me is that there is something motivating you to continue forward. Could you talk about what that thing is?
Sure. My greatest motivation is my country, Australia. I could get emotional, but I am a very proud Australian. I'm very grateful for what my parents have brought me to this country and the opportunities that I have in this country. So for me, it's very important to do what I can to protect some of that in my way. I might be wrong. I might not always be right, but I think there's a place, if you love your country and you can contribute. Not everyone has to do this. No one should be judged for this, but if you can and if you want to, then you need to step up, and you should. And that is where my conviction comes from, because I see this country going in a direction that, I don't necessarily like myself personally, but also my conservative views don't agree with a lot of things which are happening in this country. So we have to fight for those views and values, because there's young people just like me, other people on TikTok and all sorts of stuff from universities and Antifa and the far left and all this kind of stuff. They're out there. They're out there spreading their message. They're out there spreading their hate many times. They're out there telling people, out there telling the younger generation to hate this country. How can I hate this country when it has done so much for me? So it is from that place that I find conviction to fight for these values of this country. And I feel like I've started to express that more often now, to tell people that a lot of the things I'm talking about, you might not like it, but it's from my Australian values. And it's a very hard discussion to have, particularly with immigrants in this country, because when you come to this country, when I came in the 90s with my parents as a young boy, we weren't taught to hate this country. We were taught to stand proudly and sing the national anthem. And we were taught about the history of this country. Today, the next generation of migrants and the younger people growing up, even the little kids who are the daughters and children of hardworking migrants, they're growing up being told that, this country sucks. And it's not true. It's not true. And we have to fight that narrative. And if the little things that I do might even just change one outcome for one thing, I think that's important. And that's where I get my conviction. And that's why I do what I do.
I love that.
Whoa, that's cool, bro. You made
That's
starting to tear up a little bit there.
And it's one of the things that I've been saying for a while now is that it seems like for the last few years, this year was a bit different, to be honest, but the last few years, they've really been trying to strip Australian pride. Somehow it's become synonymous with racism for some reason, to be proud of your country and to want to make it better. And I don't really know where that's come from. And to me, being Australian is holding those values above all else. That's what makes somebody Australian. And man, you absolutely nailed it. So that everything you said is exactly how I think a lot of us feel, and that's why I wanted to quickly play that clip and just to sort of lead off on that. So I
mean, that's definitely something that I that comes from the heart. It's something that I totally believe in, and it is something that I worry about a lot. And I worry about it in the way that I'm kind of seeing the impacts of it today when we talk about things like multiculturalism and immigration. Like it's really prevalent. These issues kind of rise up, and obviously we recently had Australia Day, and it's a yearly kind of perennial topic of discussion when we have something like that. And we recently had The Voice, and it kind of these same themes come up. And Australia's kind of a very young country. It's still, in a way, some people might not like this, but in a way, kind of finding its feet. And it's interesting, like, seeing these issues around patriotism, because you see it in other countries, which are kind of similar to Australia. In the US, for instance, is a great example. And it's totally different. Their connection to country, the flag, even though the Democrats and the Republicans are very divided, they don't often argue about the flag. They both proudly sing their national anthem. And, in terms of the idea of America, and of course they argue about things and they fight in their Senate and their Congress or whatever. But at the end of the day, they are kind of united by this one thread of the creation of America and their history and that story. whereas Australia feels very disjointed. And I know different types of Australians might have different connections to the country. And I definitely, you know, when I speak to white Australians that have a long history from settlement to today, their connection to that story is unique compared to everyone else. And it's the same for people who are from the Aboriginal background in Australia, Aboriginal Australians. You know, they have a different connection altogether. And the immigrant population has a different connection again. And I don't think we've really found the way to combine all three of those groups, because they are all unique in their different ways, into this kind of one idea of what Australia is that we can all kind of be proud of, and you know, get behind one flag, you know, stand in front of one, you know, and sing one anthem very proudly. Understand, you know, our history. Yes, it's a complicated history, but it is our history. You know, we're still kind of arguing about what happened in the past. So these are the challenges for a new nation. And it's more complicated by the fact that Australia is actually a very advanced nation and an advanced economy. So we're not like a nation finding its feet in the sense of economically, you know, we're this kind of developing nation. No, we're very advanced, and we're up there in terms of the world and the perception of Australia. But we're still kind of very lost in who we are today.
Socially, it's almost like we're autistic.
Yeah, it's like you know, and
we're all the children of Elon Musk.
Yeah, and I know the reason for this, and you know, people interpret this differently when I tell them the reason. I kind of think is we haven't had that one defining moment as a nation where all these three groups have been involved in defending the nation from something.
Yeah, right.
Or something that kind of blurs those boundaries about, you know, skin color and when you came and, you know, which group you are and if you're Aboriginal or if you're a settler. Like, there hasn't been that one uniting force within this nation where people have been tested and everyone has to kind of put everything aside and come together and defeat a common enemy type thing. Now, you know, they're trying to tell you like COVID was a common enemy and all this. It wasn't like that, because there were still divisions. So we haven't. Well,
and on purpose too. They definitely,
yeah. And when you say on purpose, like today, it's very different to a couple of hundred years ago when these things were kind of happening. Today, our governments are very interested in this division. This division is actually profitable. It helps them with elections. It helps them maintain power. So unity is actually something that they don't like as much.
It's scary.
The division is actually a feature for them, because it helps them push through things. When people are divided, obviously it's easier to, you know, get what you want to do, get done. So I think there's all these elements playing together, and it makes it really difficult for Australia as a country. And that's why you'd see these kind of almost like teething problems where we're finding our feet. And definitely Australian identity. It's a topic I talk about a lot today. And I get it sometimes when I talk about it, because people look at me and the way that I look and they get offended, like, you can't speak for Australian identity. And I even understand that. But I feel like the ship has sailed so far that if we don't have these discussions and if we don't involve all the different groups that are here, it's actually going to get worse and worse. And there are people who love that, and they'll take advantage of that, and they'll create the type of Australia that I think is disastrous. You know, the type of Australia where we kind of have to forget our history, the good and the bad. You know, it's kind of this like new world where, you know, it's a illegitimate colony and all these kind of things and all these concepts that really, like, if you look at any other country in the world, history is also bad in those countries. It doesn't mean the present and the future doesn't have to be good. So that's what I'm worried about. I probably went on a bit too long about it, but that's kind of
no, not at all, man. We can go for as long as you like. I think the other thing is, I think you're 100% right in that we're young in that sense, and almost immature, and then you throw the internet in, and then the internet and then social media have only really become a dominating force on the planet and we're absolutely like people in general are babies when it comes to the internet and how we communicate with each other. The social media has absolutely thrown everything out of balance throughout the world. So you couple that with a sort of a developing a country that's still developing their identity and like you said, the teething sort of stage, and then you throw in something like social media, and it's knocked us for a six. Yes. And I think for a long time people have been afraid to be proud. because they don't know if they're allowed to be. And it seems like you're not allowed to be, because there's some very vocal people online that have a very fun time just cruising through and shitting on anybody that says anything at all, really. Like, it doesn't even have to be against what they believe in. They'll just, if it's something that they can pick on, they'll just pick on it for the sake of it, for clicks or for clout. And
I was just reading some of the comments. Sorry, I just got distracted by the comments.
Go for it.
But someone was saying, identity was formed in 1901, and that's true. Look, there is a distinct Australian identity that comes from its British history, and it comes from the settlement of Australia. There is a very distinct white Australian identity that's linked to the West. Like, you can't deny that history, and that is the dominant cultural history that actually built this country. Like, you can't deny that. From the institutions that we have, the system of parliament, the courts, all the kind of functioning parts of society are based on this kind of Anglo-British Western history that really is linked to Australia through the British colonization. So that can't be denied, and I think that history is obviously the dominant history. It's what you see when you look around, and that's what you kind of participate in as a person in society. But at the same time, it is that same kind of culture, that same kind of Western culture that fiddled around with these ideas of multiculturalism, bringing people in, creating these kind of freer societies. In America, you had emancipation, then you had, in the 1960s, you had the Civil Rights Act, and you had the whole guard of the old world almost changing, and these kind of things about equality and the equality of races and people kind of being together. And Australia is also a part of that history. We're a part of that kind of, in a way, an experiment. And that is also now a part of the cultural history of the Australians and the British. Like, the British paid to end slavery. Like, it was Christians and Catholics or whatever that kind of ended the slave trade very purposely, something that they had participated in previously, because they became more, I guess, enlightened in their worldview about how to treat people. So all those things are combined, and they add to what Australia is today. So a lot of people, when I'm talking about Australia today, they think I'm trying to deny the history of the British and the past. No, I'm not. I understand British history very well, because the British were in Sri Lanka for about 3 to 400 years.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So we understand the influence of the British. Like, our court systems, our parliamentary systems are all built around the same kind of British type system. Queen Elizabeth was the head of our state till 1972, until we became a republic and became Sri Lanka. So we have this same kind of experience and this same problems that have happened, like in terms of multiculturalism and different ethnicities and different cultures. It actually ended up in a civil war that went for 25 years because of these same kind of problems. So I'm never trying to deny the history and the place of and the importance of the contributions of white Australians, British Australians, Anglo-Celtic Australians. Like, I mean, a lot of people make a big point about that. I'm not trying to deny that history, but that history also involves the the changes that have happened to the country through governments, through elections, through policies, and that's all kind of a part of it. And yes, there's different people now in this country who are Australians that are a part of this mix. And you have to, in a way, make that work. Or if you try not to make it work, there are people who will use that and use it to their advantage, and they prefer it not to work. They prefer the far left, these radicals. They are the ones who are indoctrinating immigrants. Right? Yeah. It is Australians. It is white Australians themselves that started telling immigrants to hate this country, not the immigrants.
Yes. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
It is people that kind of became like woke a long time ago in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s that had these ideas and started telling people, hey, we're worthless. Like, we should not be part of our history. We should forgive us for everything. You guys are right about everything. We don't even want our culture. We want more of your culture. Now, that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world besides in Western societies. And it's crazy. Like,
I think you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't see that. You don't see it in India. You don't see it in Sri Lanka. Like, I'm just talking about Asia because I know they're very patriotic. They have problems, but they don't try to deny the place of their people as being the problem, even though they have a lot of problems they've caused. If that makes sense, like, they've probably been involved in more disastrous wars and if you want to call it genocides or whatever against different groups and different people fighting each other in that part of the world, but they don't use that as a reason to deny the place of their people at that particular time. Whereas Western societies, white people more broadly, they feel like it's a part of their virtue to be like, hey, you guys are victims. We're really bad, evil people. So, let your worldviews dominate now because, we did all this to you. And that's nonsense. Like, really, like someone like me, I don't want that. I've never wanted that. My parents, when they came in the 90s, they were very respectful and not afraid, but they were very respectful of Western society. Today, when people come here, these new migrants that are coming here, they're coming into countries because of social media and the things that you said. They're already like being told that these countries, the people, like they'll just give you stuff. Like they have no, you know what I mean? They have no, like the kids have no ambition. Like they're told these things, and then that you can take advantage of all this stuff, and you don't have to assimilate whatsoever. You can go to your own people, you can do your own temples, you can do all these things, and they'll give you money for that as well. Like that is the world that we've created in the West. So those problems are real, and we have to address them. But today, everyone together has to address them. You can't just have one group addressing it because it's just not how the power dynamics work today.
Absolutely, and it's obviously a bigger problem in the cities where the populations are more dense. One of the reasons I left Melbourne and came up north is because during the lockdowns and neighbours turning on neighbours and dobbing each other in, and the masks and getting told to leave and all the things that went on during that period, I just thought, man, the big cities are ground zero for whatever's going to come next, and they're going to continue doing it. They're going to bring out another one and another one and another one every 10 years maybe, but it'll be just long enough for everyone to slightly forget, and then another one. So I wanted to get out, but I also wanted to get somewhere a bit smaller where there was more of a community sense of a community. And when you have those senses of a community, you do see people. I don't like the word assimilate because it does tend to feel as if it's sort of by force. But for example, there's a guy not far from where I live here, full-on Balinese guy, and he absolutely he's a weapon. He's just full-on. He does these big cook-ups and invites the whole street, and everyone cruises in, and he speaks English, but he's like heavily accented, but he's just the coolest dude. And like, that's Aussie. You know what I mean? Like getting the street involved, getting everyone having a big cook up. He gets everyone around, and he just runs an absolute muck, and he's just a fun dude. Man, that's not assimilation. That's a community spirit, and that's him getting here and going, what are you guys up to? Because this is what and that's what we all should have in our lives. And it'd be so much better if it was. So it's sort of the goal, I think, as well. And I honestly think that I think society in Australia is starting to realise that maybe that we're being used for our to be against each other, like you said. So and they're using us for that. And I think everyone's starting to realise that it's a little bit just detrimental and shit. And I think everyone's starting to turn, because I noticed this year on Australia Day it was a lot more patriotic than I've seen in years and years.
There is going to be a bit of a pushback as well. People are going to push back, obviously, because it's been so in your face, and some of the things which are happening in America, we kind of vicariously live through that as well, and we see those changes happening, and it kind of pushes people a little bit more, just being like, okay, I can speak more freely, and I can be more patriotic, which is crazy to talk about. Like this whole discussion is actually insane that we're talking about being patriotic as some sort of problem, right? But that's kind of how insane all of this is. So but it's good to see, like, definitely, like, that people push back against this, that the pushback against the voice. I think that was kind of a very divisive type of thing, those type of policies. Regardless of what people might think about the reasons for it, the concept itself is very divisive, and it creates those tensions. So I don't know, in the short term, whether we would ever have a solution to that historical problem with the Aboriginal Australian peoples and the history of that and the grievances that a lot of people, feel. And for a lot of them, they feel that very rightly. And, we've had different times in our history where we've said sorry, taken these steps. But it's like those things are never enough in terms of there's always a group of people that are going to be like, hey, this is not enough. So, you know, I think we just got to keep working through it and hoping that in the future, you know, future generations will find a way to, you know, understand that history, because at the end of the day, yes, there's parts of it which are very dark, but it's the accumulation of all of that is what led to what we are today. So, you know, through the darkness and the bad things as well, it's led to a lot of good. Is what I'm trying to say. So we have to kind of deal with that, and that's how I deal with the colonial history of my part of the world. You know, I don't spend my time, you know, thinking about what the Portuguese, you know, what the Dutch, what the British did in Sri Lanka for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years while they were there. Yeah. Like my surname is Fernando because of the Portuguese. Like the whole area that my ancestors come from is a Portuguese area, and everyone there is a Catholic since like the 1500s because of the influence of the Portuguese. Like that is a part of who I am. That is my identity. But it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years now have passed from that time, where today I don't really dwell on that past as a negative type thing, and I don't blame people. I don't want reparations, and you know, there's none of that kind of happening. And even in Sri Lanka, for instance, when I go on holiday, people aren't talking about these things because I think it's so much in the distant past, and the problems that they face are even worse. Like the actual issues they have with their government is worse. Whereas I think in Australia, because of our standard of living, and you know, generally we have issues with housing and all these other problems, but our actual lives compared to the developing world is very, very good. It's a very high standard of living. So you have a lot of people, these academics with not much to do. They have a lot of time on their hands, and they find problems that don't need to exist in our societies. And they like to tear at those problems and, you know, keep talking about them, and they want to get, you know, reparations and this and that. And they just continue on because life is not as bad as it really could be in other places. So I think there's a bit of that. So it's really hard to see how long in the future it'll get better, but hopefully we have, you know, smarter people in the future that can see beyond all of that.
Are you insinuating that our politicians and our leaders are not very smart?
Well, yeah, I mean,
definitely. No, I don't think that they look very far into the future. I think that the politicians, it has become a game of 3 years into the future. They don't really look very far beyond their own terms, and a lot of them aren't really in it for the for the country. They're in it for the position and for whatever their vanity project is. I mean, Albanese has been an absolute standout in terms of trying to get some sort of a vanity project over the line to be remembered by, it seems. Like it might not be what he's doing, but it looks as if that's what he's doing. He wanted to do The Voice, and that failed. Now he's gone after misinformation, and now he's pushed, and now they've pushed through that the hate speech bills and all of that. And I mean, that's fresh off the press. And we could probably go on for 2 hours about that. And I mean, we could do time just for having this conversation once all that's dust has settled, which to me is absolutely insanity. Yeah, well, from what I understand, you have to be rallying people together. I think that it's a rallying thing, not like you can't. It's not that you just can't talk. But you can't be talking and saying, well, we need to all get together and have a march, because that's when they'll imprison you. So essentially, it's once again, people getting together and coming together as one is the thing that they're outlawing. Then that's big old Albanese right behind it with his vanity projects. I feel like, I mean, I
mean, he really wanted he wanted to kind of have that legacy, like, you know, one of those kind of great labor PMs that has this kind of great legacy, like a Keating or a Hawke. You know, Albanese kind of wanted his name there. And I think his biggest project on that was The Voice. He was happy to kind of put Australia. He was happy to put Australia through that with The Voice, with the misinformation, disinformation, this hate speech, all these things. I don't think this is really a part of their legacy. This is more about them. You know, even the Uni Party itself gaining some type of control over the people, like you guys kind of explained. And you know, we don't have those protections in law. You know, these kind of very innate protections like the Constitution in the US and the Bill of Rights and all these kind of things. So, you know, when these changes are happening in Australia, it's much harder for the people to stop them. So when I've kind of been watching this hate speech thing going on, and you notice the language from the Liberal Party and you notice the language from the Labour Party, it's almost inevitable that it's going to happen. You know, and that's probably why we're kind of fighting over, or not fighting over, but, you know, dissecting, you know, did One Nation vote yes or no? And these kind of small little things like on principle, because the actual vote itself was lost the moment that it became a bipartisan thing, because they're pretty much falling over each other as to who is going to make it the strictest or who's going to be tougher. You know, when it becomes like that, it's pretty much game over in a country like Australia with the Westminster system of government that we have. And the future that we have, as much as we look towards the US and think, oh, we can change all of this, we don't really have the, you know, there's not going to be a prime minister that comes in, you know, 10 years time and signs a whole bunch of executive orders. That's not how the Australian system works. So we don't have that. You know, it's going to be a long, hard grind for Australians to reverse some of these type of hate speech laws and things, which are you know, abysmal. And yes, they shouldn't be anywhere in a part of our laws. It's in the sense that we already have enough laws that cover these areas, and it's already bad enough for us. Why they're making it even worse? But what we should be looking at is not the US and what's happening there, even though it makes us feel good. We should be looking at the UK, because our future is the UK, and we are maybe 10, 15 years behind, ending up in the situation where they had these type of laws very early on put through, and when you saw them bring it out to use against people, you know, for posting on Facebook and, you know, talking about, you know, racial issues and, you know, riots and these kind of things, whatever this happens in the country, but you saw them then enact it and use it against people and just start locking people up. And we will get to that phase. We'll get to that stage, and it'll happen. And that is the future that we have to look forward to. It sounds bleak and disastrous, and we can't change it with executive orders. We can't change it with, you know, just one election. Like, you know, if Dutton wins come whenever the election is this year, he's not going to go in there and change those, because he's put his fingerprint on that. He wants it.
He's been pushing that since 2017. We've talked about that.
These guys have been pushing it, and exactly. And, you know, they tried with the legislative way with the misinformation, disinformation. It was kind of similar type of thing. But what they found is people today, you know, we have the internet, for instance. We can organize ourselves. We can share information. We don't need anything they give us. We don't need the ABC. We don't need any of this crap. We don't need their radios. We just need it for like the emergency services for a bushfire or something, you know? We don't need any of those things. We have each other. We can organize in communities. We can share information with each other. So the government's completely cut out of the picture. So that's the last thing that they want, where we're not dependent on them. And through these hate speech rules and things like this, they put a little bit of fear back into us, and being like, hey, you know, we're still in control. You got to be careful with what you say. Even in social media, yes, you know, Elon Musk has given you freedom. You're on X. You can say and do whatever you want. But actually, we've got a bit of power as well. And they're just letting it be known that they still call the shots. And to change that around, it's going to take, obviously, lots of, I think, minor parties, independents, people who are thinking in that kind of freedom perspective and, you know, preserving rights and actually increasing our rights as well, because a lot of it becomes about preserving rights, but actually the future that we're headed towards with all this digital stuff around us, it has to be about increasing our rights.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not just about getting rid of protecting what we already have. It's actually about adding more. And that is the way that I think you know, future politicians and people that want to be involved in the government, or just as a minor party, they have to be thinking about these type of things and actually getting that message out to Australians, because you population have no clue. They have no idea.
And therein lies the problem. It's hard. Like, how do you change when they've called it hate speech laws? So how do you argue for hate speech? You know, you turn around and you say, no, we want that reverse. What, you want hate speech? Right. And that's what you're fighting. You're fighting that it sounds ridiculous from the beginning. Well, exactly. That's why they word it that way. So you've got to then re-educate everybody on why it's not hate speech, and you have to re-educate on what it's doing and how it's taken. And by the time you do that, it's already too late. It's already gone, because who would be pro hate speech? None of us want hate speech. But what we don't want to be done is completely shut down, even when it's not hate speech. Like who decides? And that's our
yeah. I think you got to be tactical. A lot of it comes down to, like you said, language, the use of language. You just got to kind of obviously come up with a different. Trump does it really good. He comes up with these different kind of
very good.
two or three word phrases that kind of stick in people's mind. The big steal.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he just like a couple of words, and he kind of it's the opposite to something that the Democrats are doing, and he has those 3 words. You got to kind of do that with this hate speech thing as well. I don't know what the terms are, but you have to kind of flip it around and tell people, hey,
this is what we want.
This is what
you
we
just
want.
reminded me, because he's just so blunt and straightforward. And they were trying to disguise it as racism. And she's like, why do you call it the China virus? Because it's from China.
The China virus.
But he's right.
Yeah,
he's actually right. We all
was.
know it came from there.
And I mean,
if it came from a lab, and we all know it came from a lab.
Yeah.
It still came from China. If it came from someone eating a bat that had sex with a penguin.
Well, if it came from Australia, then it would have been an Australia virus. Like, it's Spanish pretty straightforward.
Spanish flu, they called it the Spanish flu because it came from Spain.
I mean, this is all the sensitivities of like the West these days. Like, if a virus, for instance, if that virus came from the USA and it reached China, they would be like saying it's the American virus, and they would be saying that like it's the American virus. There would be no discussion there being like, oh, should we call it the American virus? And that doesn't happen. It's just
China wouldn't give a fuck.
No. They'd be like, it is the Americans' fault, guys.
That's what it's called. Absolutely.
But look, the hate speech thing, like, obviously, I'm reading some of the comments as well. And people are making great points. Like, obviously, hate speech is like free speech. Like, that is the ultimate form of free speech. And when you have people who decide what that is obviously it's going to be a very gray area. We also have to understand that there are some limitations in the sense of, protecting children and things like this. Like there are these kind of gray areas where we have to be careful and mindful about this. But I think there's existing laws that can address that, right? That's kind of what they use. They use like, oh, it's got to protect this group. It's to protect like, disabled people or, people who aren't the same as everyone. It's to protect them. Like they go to like that level. But we already have laws to protect all those things, right? So we got to be really careful. It's got to be tested. I think now that it's gone through either in the courts at some point, it might not be soon. But tested in the courts. And then when it gets to the court system, obviously you need a very good judiciary that actually takes this stuff seriously. And if there's flaws in it, to actually, correct those flaws or whatever when it's challenged. So, it seems pretty bad right now, but, we still turn it around, definitely. But they do have that in their armor right now. So the government does have that really as a weapon right now, pointed towards us. And it's how we kind of deal with it.
And it feels like we're in the front line of the firing line as well, sort of thing. The people that are, for lack of a better word, compliant and not asking questions or having podcasts on Tuesday nights, like they're not going to be the ones that are going to worry about it. So for now, they probably won't care. It's not until it gets to that point where it is, like you said, in the UK, where they're starting to come after everyday people now that aren't part of like freedom movements or anything, and all of a sudden now everyone's gone, oh fuck, what have we let them create? What have we done? And it's really hard, like you said, to turn it back. Can't turn back the clock.
Hey,
definitely.
But talking about turning back the clock, this is actually what I wanted to start the interview with and take you back in time at the start of the lockdowns. So I was actually, I wasn't aware of this. So I'll just play it and then we'll talk about it.
Support the state government in these lockdowns. It's necessary. Many of us, it's not a surprise to anyone that we've all been talking about the need for these type of lockdowns, and there's an argument to be made that maybe it should have happened 3 weeks ago when we came into this current phase of lockdown. So, I don't want to speak bad against this actual lockdown itself because I think it's required. I think it's needed.
Yeah, I see that clip shared a lot, so that's good.
Well, that's actually the first time I've seen it, Rukshan.
That's my gotcha.
I did actually want to okay it with you first, but I don't think
Yeah,
you've got a problem with it.
I don't care. I don't have a problem. That's from like a 20-minute video that I kind of did about, I think it was like the second or third lockdown, something like that. I can't remember exactly which phase it was. So very early on. And you have to understand that, for me, myself as a business owner, we're kind of a egalitarian type of people, Australians. Like no one kind of knew what was happening at that point. I was in a totally different world. Like I was working, I was in my business. Like it was like,
just got to say, Wayne went through the same.
I was the same, mate. I sort of wasn't really awake to much. I just had children. I was in the middle of Melbourne. Everything was locking down. My missus worked for the airlines. We just bought a house, so we had this mortgage, and then all of a sudden she couldn't go to work, and I was struggling to go to work. And we had the childcare and everything. So I went straight out and got the 2 jabs as soon as they could, just so I could continue doing what I do. And it wasn't until later on that I started asking questions. I never really wanted them. I didn't want them at all, but I just thought, we don't really have a choice. And I didn't really fight back. But also with the lockdowns, like you said, in the very beginning, I was not for them, but I was like, when we were told, one quick 2 or 3 week turnaround, or six weeks to flatten the curve. Do you remember that? And I was like, let's just fucking do it, get it out of the way.
This is the thing, right? So this is the thing. This is what I was trying to get to, like our good nature as people, and I saw this across a lot of different businesses. Like, it's not easy to shut down a business and close it up. And at a level, you feel if you don't participate in this activity with the rest of society, because everyone else is making these sacrifices. And at that point, I didn't really have that within me to be like, hey, I'm going to be the one that steps out of line at this very moment, this very early on, this is at the very start, and be the one that doesn't kind of join everyone else in this kind of fight that we're in as a community together. Because I'm a part of a community. There's my friends, my parents, my family, like everyone. We're all a part of this community, and the government's telling us, hey, this has happened. The solution that we've come together as your government, as your elected leaders, is that we want you to do this. We need this many number of weeks to get this under control. We think this is all you need to do. And can you do that for us as a community? And you do these things. Like I do a lot of things that I'm not particularly myself keen on, but I do it as a sacrifice. So it's in that vein, and you support government. I've never, like, for a long time, I haven't voted for the Labor Party. I'm not a supporter of Daniel Andrews. I have no reason to support his policies, but I support, I would support a Labor government right now. If there was a war that came to Australia, I would, go to war at the behest of Anthony Albanese, not because I, love the Labor Party and his policies, but if that's what the government decided at that point, and it was called upon us to do that, I would not look at the political side of it. So it's like that. You support these things, but I think what happened to a lot of Victorians, especially, you kind of support these things, and then you realize that they're lying to you, or you realize that they're taking your support and your sacrifices for granted.
Yeah,
and then it doesn't matter how much money they throw at you. It doesn't matter that they're doing these things, because the moment that you figure out that they're actually being deceptive, they're not sharing the truth with you, you're giving up so much, but they're just like lying to you, and they're not taking any responsibility. That's when something inside myself changed as well, and I became more vocal. So you have to go through that process. So people can't look at me today and be like, hey, Rukshan, you were just like against the Daniel Andrews from the start, and you were just anti-government and anti. No, I actually tried to do what the government told me. I tried to participate in their little thing, and when the moment I realized that they were screwing people over and it was dangerous, then I had a reason to look at the past of what I had done and be like, actually, the decision that I'm making today to stand up for myself, to cover what's happening out there, is the correct decision, because I'm making it based on the fact that I listened to them and they were wrong.
And
I have no regrets about the decision. That's why I have no regrets about the decision that I made. I feel like I made it with the fully informed of who I was dealing with the Victorian state government and the Australian, the Liberal Party as well. Who I was dealing with were people who were being highly deceptive, lying to people, just throwing money at us. That really, at the end of the day, it's our taxes that we're paying today. It's a debt that we're in today. They were just throwing all this stuff at us, and they were deceiving us. And we kind of, you had to make a decision at a certain point. And yes, some people from the very start, and there are lots of people like this, and I knew this information from the start, but it was like, who am I going to convince at this very moment that all these things are happening? I'm going to be like, hey, no. It's very hard to do that. But once you start seeing the problems, then it becomes easier to talk to people and can show them that, hey, look at these problems that are in society. I think they're doing the wrong thing.
Was there a like a specific moment where you went? I
was just going to ask.
Fuck,
the red pill moment.
Was there a moment?
Yeah, I was watching. I was at home and I was just I'm in the city, so I was watching this. I lived in the Queen Victoria Market, and I was watching these protests at the market. I don't know if you remember, there was a protest at the market with people walking through, and the horses came in, and they were like arresting people.
I was there. I was there, Rukshan.
You were there, yeah. So I wasn't involved in any, and I wasn't involved in any protest coverage during that time. And I was watching it at home. I was making little reels, montages from it, but I was like, this is like. It's a bit crazy. Like it looks really. This doesn't look like Australia. Whatever I'm seeing, these people walking to the market. It looks a bit strange. I'd like to go see it for myself. And then I ended up at the one of the very early protests at the Shrine of Remembrance. And I just remember when I got there, I got there really early because obviously I'm within my radius. I'm walking. They can't stop me or anything because I'm within my 5 kilometers or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm there, and I remember just the feeling of having the police and stuff just kind of surround. I was just by myself. Just walk there, just surround me and start like questioning me, like the Gestapo almost. You know what I mean? It was like
wow.
It was just like very kind of like in that moment, like I remember like because not really a confrontational type of person, and I don't. I don't get myself into trouble with the law, if that makes sense.
It does.
I rarely have any issues with the police or anything like this. That's kind of my first real interactions with police in that way. So I remember I was like there, and I was answering these questions, and I was kind of shaking a little bit as well, just like my legs, because I was just caught in this, like I'd never really experienced what's going on here. And it was after that really kind of stuck with me, and then I saw the protest. And I saw what happened myself firsthand, like just how, I guess, improper law enforcement was. And then what really red pilled me, I guess, in a way, was when I saw the media that were reporting it afterwards. And they were like giving some ridiculous number of people that were there, which was like a very small number of people. And I was like, there's no way that there was I'm like, there's like a few thousand people there at least, I think, or like a few hundred people.
I estimated about 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Yeah, right. And they were saying like a couple of hundred people or whatever. I was like, nah. I'm like, from that moment on, I'm like, definitely they are purposely, very deliberately, they've been instructed either to deliberately lie to the people in Australia, the people in Victoria, about a very basic fact on the number of people. That is not who we are as a society. At least that's what I thought anyway. That is something you see in like a state-controlled media. That's what I imagine would
Russia
happen in
or something.
communist China or something in Russia. Or,
Yeah.
Like that's what so for me, it was like, this is not like normal. Like, why would they lie about a number? Like, what else are they lying about? If they're lying about this very simple thing, and I get it, like maybe they're trying to make people feel like no one's really come out there, and I'm like, but why would you do that in a free democratic Western society? Why would you lie about the intentions of the citizens there who are upset about something? Why lie about the number? And I think it was from that moment onward I started going to the protests, and I started filming them because I felt like the coverage was obviously all lies, and there was things happening there which could be important things that we might not ever see. And that kind of obviously then it kind of one thing led to another, and I just started obviously going to almost all of them. And then at one point I decided to like live stream for my protection as well, because what I gathered was, even though I'm filming this stuff, like there's all the time when I'm doing this work, there's always cops like harassing me and coming up to me, like they kind of, who knows if they'll like, beat me up and take my camera or something. But I felt like if I was live streaming, I'd felt safe. At least there's kind of like a safer because there's like a live record of
there's a segment that we do called Cop Watch. And I actually just quickly smashed this together before we came on. It's taking a little while. I think I've got to freeze some, but it's coming.
That's all right.
I've got the little coloured wheel going. But this is actually, your device is having trouble sharing your video. Try sharing again. Okay.
Oh God. See, remember what we said about unprofessional? It is funny, mate, because a lot of people were red-pilled by the same sort of thing by seeing that. I remember working... Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'll stay with the other media, man. I'll stay with the other media.
I don't care.
I'll stay with the other media. I'm doing my job.
Where's your identification?
I don't need identification. I'm independent media.
Look at the media behind you.
What
for?
for?
Filming you.
Yeah.
I mean, I work for myself. I'm not doing this whole thing again. If you remove me from this space, there'll be legal consequences.
Sure. I've asked you
So
to leave,
I'm working.
I've asked you to leave.
Why are you asking me to leave? Why not him?
Where do you work for?
I work for myself.
Okay, so you leave the area.
So people that work for themselves can't be here.
Leave the area.
People that work for themselves can't be here.
Identification.
I can show you my ID. I work for myself.
I'm just asking you to move on, please.
Why are the other media allowed here?
I'm talking to you. As
I'm
an
asking you
individual.
why the other media is allowed. Why are you picking on me?
I'm not picking on you.
Then why
I'm
is that?
asking you to leave.
Look, there's other people there with cameras. They're filming.
I'm asking them to leave.
So why you? Tell me why you asking me to leave. I don't
I'm
leave.
asking you for your verification.
I love it.
of your
I love it.
identification.
Have you got verification from them?
This is...
You've got a big set of
Are
balls,
you,
man. Love
are you
it.
telling me that you want identification from independent
I
media?
got a story.
To show
I
that.
can show
Yeah.
you my ID. I work for myself.
Yeah, well, I need some identification.
I can give you my ID.
I think we're.
My job.
Well,
You're stopping me from doing my job.
Can I
Are you
see
sure?
identification, please?
I can show you my ID. Yeah, sure.
So like I can kind of give you a that's like that's a bit more recent. I think that's in 2023 or something, 2022, something like this. But I told you the story. My first interaction with the police, where I was kind of shaking, my legs were shaking and things like this, and you kind of become battle hardened over time. And I learned eventually that actually in our societies, the relationship between the police and the media is a very interesting one, in the sense that in some spaces you are almost equals in terms of your access to that space. And the police kind of do this thing where they try to trick you into, making you feel like you don't belong there, almost, as media.
Yep.
And there is this part that where maybe I was a bit too aggressive in my tone, but you kind of have to stand up for yourself, or they will push you around. So you got to move people on for whatever reason that
you got to use it or lose it.
You got to use it or lose it, and you do actually have this equal kind of access to space in those areas, because at the end of the day, media plays a role. We're watching the police, we're recording a public space where people are interacting with police, and police are also capable of committing crimes. So they do not get to call the shots all the time. And now it's different if it's like a SWAT operation, or they're kind of trying to arrest some guy for some
that's fair enough.
international terrorist thing, and they need the space, and it's all kind of professionally done. But in a public space, in a protest, that actual square belongs to all peoples, including the police. They just have a job and a role to play. So, the left is really good at this. They have their legal observers and things like this. Whereas, on the right side of politics, we're not as organized with. I'm not anti-police, if that makes sense. It's not about being anti-police. It's not about arguing with the police. It's about them understanding that
abusing their rights.
Yeah, because they will just take the easiest path possible. They will, they just use their badge and their authority and like, hey guys, you got to move on. And most people would move on, and I would have at one point in my life moved on. But I know better today that actually no, as a media person, I can stay here. They can move me on if they want, but there could be legal consequences for them, and then they think twice.
Of course.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, man. I'm sort of on the same boat because I saw a lot of the defund the police sort of thing going on in America and all that, and I don't agree with that at all. I think that that without police, it'd be chaos, and we need police.
It'd be the purge.
It'd be the worst. But what we do need is for police to do their jobs and not overstep what they're supposed to be doing. Like you said, their job at that situation isn't to disperse everybody. It's to make sure that everyone's safe, to protect and to serve. That's their job. Their job isn't to get in there and have a political affiliation and move everyone on because they don't agree with what the people are yelling about. Their job is to just chill out and make sure that nobody is being aggressive or hurting anybody. And a lot of the times, from a lot of the footage we've seen, you see them instigating violence to then be able to justify shutting down the protest. And we've seen that a lot. Absolutely. And so we've seen that more often than not. Is they're the ones actually pushing for people to do the wrong thing, baiting people into doing the wrong thing. And it's only the people like you that are there with a camera watching it that actually stops them from doing it and keeps them in their place. And so it is so necessary, and it is fucking scary. Like you said, you're battle hardened, but like the fact that you have to be battle hardened, the fact that you have to stand there and know what your rights are and push back, to be able to stop them from overreaching their power. It shouldn't be, but unfortunately it is. And that's why we need people doing what you do and more of it. So I absolutely applaud the
can
work
I just
you've
ask?
done.
I've always wanted to ask this question. Michael Griffith and I would talk from Cafe Lockdown. We were talking about getting a press card. Do you need a press card? And
no, I mean, there's like this kind of because they wouldn't even let me join. Like, this is like the thing. It's kind of like this kind of, these press unions and stuff like this. And it's all. I mean, it probably serves a purpose. Of course, it's good to have a professional industry code and standards and all these kind of things, and they do all these things. But it's all BS. It's all just like today. I'm saying in today's world, it's almost like gatekeeping and making money and membership and all these things. And I don't think unless you want to enter like a government building and you need to have security clearances done. And I understand to have a press pass for that type of environment. But to be working on the street, journalism is almost like a God-given right in a way. Yeah,
it is.
Like it is almost guaranteed to us in the way that our documents that created Australia have been set up, like our right to political communication, things like this. It all kind of falls into this journalism type thing. So they pretend like you do need these things, but no, actually, citizen journalism is a fundamental thing that people can engage in, and there shouldn't be gatekeepers. There shouldn't be memberships. The ultimate judge of someone's work as a journalist is really the people that consume the content. When the newspaper started, in the early 21st century, there wasn't, these kind of media passes and things like this. It was people creating.
It was all started independent, right?
It was all independent, entrepreneurs,
of course,
things like this. So, like, it's that same legacy, same tradition. But today we try to kind of formalize things to such a degree just to have control. And you're seeing, the Trump White House, going back to America, one of the first things the press secretary there did was to open it up to new age media, to content creators. They've told podcasters to come. So you've seen this shift where the world's actually moved on from this kind of formal setting of what a journalist and what media is. And today it's about people who can engage with people on camera, like what you guys are doing, the show that you're doing. Obviously, it's a form of journalism in a way, and you're informing people. And why can't you have access to, for instance, a press pass into Parliament?
We can make our own. I might make one.
But I'm
I'd like to make a lanyard.
Why can't you have access to Why can't you have access to Canberra? We saw during the press conferences, like it was so guarded. Yeah. During the COVID press conference, it was just like a select few people that could go in there. Why couldn't more people?
Well, Arby got kicked out. I think Arby got in and he got kicked out with Daniel Andrews because
they
couldn't screen what he was going to say. or
Exactly.
what questions he was going to ask.
So we live in gatekeeping style societies where almost everything is gatekept. There's always some barrier to people starting something, and in a way the internet's freed that up and changed it, which is amazing. But you saw with the misinformation bill, they're trying to put these barriers in again artificially in their own way. The E-Safety Commission is all about these gates and barriers and stopping people from sharing information. And it's a constant battle. Like we can't give up space. Like you got to kind of keep back and forth fighting with them for this space. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, they can't deny the most basic things like citizen journalism. Like if they, if the police assaulted a citizen journalist and it ever wound up in court, they wouldn't be able to argue, hey, he hasn't got a media union press pass. They would have still attacked a journalist. there's no requirement at law for these things. So it maybe just adds weight. It adds weight to your credentials, but it's not necessary. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've got to applaud you because so many Victorians were actually watching your live streams. Otherwise, they would never have actually seen the other side. And, when I was looking you up, I think on Wikipedia, I think your description came up as you gave favourable media coverage of, yes, you're already laughing. And I'm laughing as well because I'm like, you just streamed for, someone in the comments said, up to 7 hours. I mean, that is like you just streamed till the end.
There's no favourable there. You're just streaming, man. Like that's the thing. How can that be favourable?
I mean, this was a complaint by the left, or the kind of the pro-vaccine groups that, and they're the ones that edit those Wikipedia things. Like I have no involvement with that. Like someone's made that obviously, and they'll put it in that kind of negative slant. And live stream is actually the great. It's a great form of capturing these events because it's very hard to look at a live stream and be like, hey, there's some context missing. I mean, obviously, the direction your camera points at is important, but overall, if you go from start to finish, it gives you that kind of timeline.
It's hard to edit. You can't shine it in a certain light unless you're literally pointing the camera at the ground when something happens. Really, it's hard. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then, recently we had the whole thing with the Moira Deeming and the Let Women Speak rally. And I did an affidavit for that. And they used my live stream footage, which I had from start to finish. Before any of the drama happened, to the very end, I had my live stream. And that was the accepted basis for the order of events for that particular court case. Like there was no doubts cast over that by the judge. Everyone, both sides and the judge, everyone accepted that was the standard for what happened on the day, and that's the power of a live stream. And it's very hard to argue then against that and be like it's very selective style live stream. Like there's only so many things that you can do. Obviously I'm trying to show the scenes which are the most interesting, maybe, or when the police are coming, I'm trying to show that. So yes, I make those conscious decisions, but that is more so directed by what's happening on the ground rather than my own intentions, if that makes sense.
You're following the action.
Following the action, not the not the narrative.
Exactly.
Which was one of the complaints that Michael Gray Griffith had about Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, because he said to them, why, this is a Pulitzer prize-winning shot. Why don't you point the camera at the cops as they're shooting? Look, they're shooting rubber bullets at us. And you took that footage. I told a few people because I was there on the ground when they were shooting rubber bullets at us. I was there at the CFMEU. I remember you being there for that.
Yes.
Which that was especially Bill Shorten. I saw him talk about it, and he said the main trouble was from troublemakers, and I think he said neo-Nazis that had infiltrated
baby neo-Nazis.
That's right.
That infiltrated the tradies and led them astray, and they dressed up as tradies. Now, my argument has always been it probably will cost you, with boots and everything else, it'll cost you $300 So why would they dress up as tradies? It is the
Yeah.
stupidest fucking thing ever. If you want to come start trouble, you're going to come as you are, as a skinhead or whatever that he was trying to say. And it was just the tradies were there for 8 hours. They got frustrated because they wanted Setka to come and.
Well, he should have been on their side.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I've been to a few union rallies, and Setka should have been on their side. He should have been fighting for their rights to choose. He should have been fighting for their rights to work. And instead, he walked out and pissed all over his own belly and said, "Come on, boys, we just got to do as we're told." And it wasn't, at the beginning. This is right down the line where we all kind of already started to know at that point that everything was bullshit. And Setka really, it wasn't his job as the union head of the union for Victoria or whatever. It wasn't his job to do what he did, and that's why the boys got pissed off.
It was a delicate situation. I think he went on radio. He went on radio and insinuated that there were Nazis and that kind of stuff there. So
I remember I sort of kicked it off a bit because somebody told me that he's on the radio at the moment saying that neo-Nazis have infiltrated it. Yeah. So I went and told the guy who was organising it with the megaphone, and then he just lost his shit and then talked about it on the megaphone. Yeah, I did. I remember saying it. And he was on the megaphone saying, "This is what Setka's doing at the moment, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And then it was only moment. You would have seen moments, maybe 30 minutes, an hour later, can't really remember. But then someone said, "Time's up," and threw a plastic water bottle. And this, I'd love to get your thought on this, because what I always remember is all these beers getting passed out, but it wasn't like one person got a slab. It was like 100 beers just going out with the tradies. And I'm like, it's not the union buying these beers. Who the fuck is buying these beers? Who's got the money and going, "I'm going to shout 1,000 people"?
Yeah, but there were people. I remember like vaguely now, but I do remember people like when I was reading my live stream comments, they're talking about ordering food for people, and I think they were doing stuff like this. People who were watching were sending sending things.
Wow.
Yeah, I do remember in the comments people were discussing like, where is it? Let's send the boys some food and stuff. So I think people who are watching at home, who obviously knew where the building was or whatever, you can just look it up, I guess. They were directing people to go drop off stuff there. So
well, that's my conspiracy theory squashed. I thought the government, Daniel Andrews, was sending the beers going, this is going to be a good kickoff.
They could have sent something. I mean, look, it was a very delicate situation. It was kind of on a razor's edge at a certain point, and then it definitely did kick off. And I've seen a few things by that point covering the protest, but that was the first time I think I really saw two groups of, I guess, members of the public punching on in a way. It wasn't really like the police stopping people. It was, it kind of got heated between the public. And I think there is a point where the actions of the government become so bad that people end up fighting against each other. You know what I mean?
They start lashing out.
That's how bad things had gotten in our state, where people were literally ready to go punch on with each other over, these mandates and, the disrespect or whatever they felt, and their jobs and their livelihoods. And, it was like we take the frustration out on each other. So you can see, like, even from that, how poorly mismanaged that this whole scenario in Victoria was by the Andrews government during that time.
Absolutely. Man, it was pretty shocking, just how everything's played out and since. And, a lot, you said earlier, like, people forget, and I think everybody's sort of starting to forget, or not everybody, but a lot of people are. But what I want to ask, what do you think's next? Like, where do we go from here, or what are your sort of plans with this kind of stuff? Are you going to keep streaming for as long as you want, or are you going to what's next for you?
Yeah, I've kind of obviously I do a few different things in my life. Some of it's like related to my previous work in the wedding industry, so I continue to do that in some capacity. I've done, obviously I do the journalism things as well, and it's different style. It's more so similar to what you guys are doing. I do more podcasts. I'll cover the occasional protest. Obviously, I'll talk about global issues on X, for instance, where I spend a lot of time, just involved in political commentary, and sometimes just in a way trolling, like the left or whatever. Like, it's a bit of fun. It's nothing nefarious. It's just you give
they bite so hard.
Yeah, it's a bit of both.
Well, I like the way you handle the trolls. It's like you just talk to them nicely, and I think that must infuriate them even more.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised. I was counting on a whole lot of trolls. We had Thanos, the voice. We had him on here.
Yeah. Yes.
And we got inundated with trolls. He has a following of trolls. We never copped that many trolls on here.
It was brutal.
So I haven't even really noticed anyone who's been trolling today. And we're up to. Good. We've had the most people ever watching us tonight with 1,208 live at the moment.
That's just on this.
I've learned with trolls over a long period of time. Like, I don't block anyone on my social media, so I let them go at it, and I'll respond to people here and there, even if there's crazy stuff. I'll just kind of respond to them, try to give them an answer, whatever they're asking me, and it usually disarms people over a period of time. So people that I had who were epic trolls of mine have even slowly over time warmed up to me and engage in civil conversation with me, because I, in a way, even when they're being disrespectful, I'm still respectful. It's very rarely that I will, use like cuss words or, do things like this. Obviously, I'll challenge people's ideas. I think we should always challenge people's ideas.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times, these trolls are, I think they're usually sad people. They're lost. They have other issues. There's obviously, a critical political debate, and then there's just trolling for the sake of trolling. And I fully engage in critical debate, and I think that's that's kind of why we're doing this, right? That's why we're putting stuff out there. You want people to react to it. You want to engage in a conversation.
Of course,
you post something, like you're not posting into a void. You want something from it. That's the reality. But the trolls, they're not really interested in that. They're interested in like psychologically making people not want to participate in the space. And then you just got to play on that. You play on that psychology. You treat them as they are. And a lot of them just eventually give up. And I found that a lot over time, that all my trolls have mostly given up. New ones start, but then they quickly figure out and give up as well. So, yeah.
Well, it deflates when all they want to do is fight, and you refuse to fight. But you also... I get a little bit of it as well, because I tend to fly around on social media and do the same kind of thing, not anywhere near the level that you do, but I find that the same thing when you come up with good points, when you can be bothered. See, I find it sometimes I can't be bothered with the you go to all the trouble of formulating responses and putting things out, and then they just go, oh yeah, I'll read it later. And you go, so, you were never going to fucking read it. You were just here to yell at people. You never really cared about the other side of the story. Yeah. And, and so you can only care so much. But once you sort of take that steam off, where you can yell at me and call me names all you want, but I'm not caring about that. I'm caring about what we're actually talking about. They deflate big time, and 90% of them fuck right off. And the 10% of them that do hang around, they essentially go one or two ways. They agree to disagree, and they become very much nicer. And then you get down to some real issues, and you can actually have a conversation. Or they do the whole thing, well, show me what you've got. You show them, and then they go, I'll read it later, and then you never hear from them again either. So that's that's pretty much most of them.
Definitely. I think we don't teach, like, we have all this kind of anti-bullying stuff, and bullying is a massive issue, but there's not that much resilience that's taught to people maybe around these issues. Like, kind of, I went to a very kind of tough, rough high school in the southeast suburbs in Dandenong High School.
Dandenong. I've got a few mates in Dandenong.
So I went to
Dandenong
High.
If you're in Melbourne.
I went to Dandenong High in the 90s, and I think I started there in like 97 or 98 or something. And it's a rough place, like in terms of like, you know, a lot of people, lots of different views and ideas, and, you know, people fighting each other, and, you know, you get bashed, and like all these things are happening because of people's discussions, because you're different, because you're racially different, this racial group doesn't like you, and it's just a melting pot of like all the craziness you can think of in this one space. So I think being in that environment where I was not bullied, but you had to defend yourself, you had to defend your identity, you had to fight for the things you believe in terms of just not always physically, but just in your ideas, racism or whatever you want to call it. So I'm really immune to a lot of that. Like people like say all these crazy things to me. I'm like, I've heard like much worse in my life. I've been through much worse in terms of physically with people. That it's not as bad as you're kind of trying to. What you're doing is not as evil as you think it is. It's just like it's the reality of the world that I grew up in. So I deal with it a bit better, I think, maybe. And perhaps if you've had a more sheltered, especially today, because everyone's very sheltered, safe spaces, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing in the sense that people should be experiencing bullying and stuff. Don't get me wrong, but there is an overemphasis on safe spaces and, you know, not being hurt by words and things like this. And I think that really kind of when people are faced then online with these extremes, they don't know how to react to it without getting very emotional about it. So maybe we need to be like more like what Trump's doing today. Trump is a perfect he's a great example for many things. He's very brash. He doesn't care. He says what he thinks. You know, you can like it or not. He'll say it straight to the media's face. He'll comment on about a reporter,
His
and
tweets.
he's like, his
tweets are awesome.
His tweets of obviously, and you just got to deal with it. Like, and you see leaders sometimes like Justin Trudeau and stuff. They react to it very emotionally, but then you have other leaders like, you know, Putin and stuff, and Trump talks to them, and the reactions are totally different. They understand what he's saying. So, you know, recently Trump was telling the Hamas, you know, you got till Saturday 12 p.m. or hell's going to break loose.
I saw that. All of them back.
No other world leader can speak so bluntly, but he understands the language of that part of the world, and he uses that. So I think we don't really understand as people today how to communicate in different spaces, especially the internet. You know, it's all kind of this bubble wrap around us, and it makes people very fragile. So I'm not from that world. I'm guessing you guys aren't as well, because of the time period that you grew up in.
Yeah,
and it's just
I've worked security in a lot of nightclubs, especially when it was rough. I used to do the Metro nightclub.
Yeah, I know the Metro.
Yeah, a bunch of us do. I used to do Bimbos. I did the Nightcat in Fitzroy for 11 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's.
When you see the world,
I'm not
like,
for bullying, and I'm always been anti-bully.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's just people have got
too far the other way.
Yeah, it's just swung too much the other way.
Yeah.
There's no resilience.
Yeah, I mean the kids are soft. You compare the kids here with the kids overseas, and they're soft. It's not a critique about kids here or something, and that goes to like all kids of all races in Australia that are growing up. They're soft, and you look at these, you see these videos of these little Chinese kids doing kung fu as a class unit, and you're like, this is what if we're ever faced in a kind of a battle, this is kind of what we're up against in terms of the mentality and the discipline and the structure of the society. Now, we don't need to go for that 100%, but we've gone so far in the other direction that I think it's bad. So you got to bring, it's
got to be in the middle somewhere.
Got to be that middle, like Trump's doing that with the military in the US. He's getting rid of all the work stuff because military, what's the purpose? To fight and kill. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the pure purpose of the military. They don't need to be doing this DEI and woke things and flags and all. What is that? That's got nothing to do with the military. So there are aspects in our society that we need to bring some of those things.
That's just critical thinking. That's not being misogynist. That's not being racist. He just wants.
No, it's actually beneficial.
It's
actually beneficial.
You
like
want
I saw
people that are, you don't want a sniper. You're not going to you're going to go for the guy who's got the best shot and who's got the guts to take someone out.
Yeah.
You're not going to go, well, hang on a minute. What about
what ethnicity was that sniper? Can we diversify
the
a little bit?
transsexual out?
That shit doesn't matter. And I saw the Pete Hegseth, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense that he's got, former military, Fox News anchor, all these kind of things. But he put up some photos on social media today, and it's him, the Secretary of Defense or whatever he is, and he's training with the soldiers like himself. He's gone there and he's training with them and lifting weights and doing those things. Like we like that is a part of our culture that we used to have. Where the person that was leading the military, the figurehead, was a part of the military and with the crew, and there was that kind of respect with them that you'd follow your leader into battle. They're recreating that culture that used to be so prevalent. And we really need to have aspects of that as well within, of course, education, very importantly, because that's when kids, start learning, and that's when they start. But in every aspect of our lives, I think, different industries, we need to bring back those qualities to the West, because those things have, I think, really put us on the back foot in many different ways that we can probably spend hours and hours talking about. But I know you guys know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, yeah. Just got someone from Greece who I actually worked security with, Kyriakos. He's got the comment, "You're right. I'm in Greece and I haven't seen the shit that's in Melbourne here." And part of the reason he actually left, because it was just getting too much for him. It was just all the woke bullshit. I've got another Serbian friend who I work security with here and there. We used to do the Prince of Wales, the Prince Band Room in St Kilda. I can reveal where I was working because we lost the contract. So, which is no great loss because it's the Australian venue company that took it over, which wanted to ban Australia Day. So
you don't want to work for the you don't want to work for the Chinese anyway. It's all right.
That's right.
Just in regards to that as well, I'm actually on the same page as you with being patriotic. I actually immigrated when I was 8 years old from Germany. Yeah. And I have to say that the last 5 years I've become more patriotic and realised that I'm an Australian more and more. Yes. Because what they've done by telling us that it's un-Australian to, parade the flag. And I never really cared before because I'm like, my ancestry and my background is German, whatever, I'm not going to the shrine for Anzac Day and Remembrance Day because I'm really German. But now that they're trying to take that away from us, I'm like, well, I grew up here. The first 8 years were in Australia, in Germany, but I'm definitely Australian. I don't know. I can't go back there and identify, as a German. And when I did go back 3 times in my 20s, I got called by my cousins the kangaroo. They used to call me the kangaroo.
Yeah, so, it's the same type of experience for me when I go on holiday or something to visit family. Like, obviously, I look the same, but I don't really fit in. And again, I'm going back to an area that's a lot more Western because of the Catholic history there. So culturally wise, it's very kind of similar concepts, and everyone kind of speaks English and all this kind of stuff. That's all normal, but there's still a difference. And once you're in a country and you're a part of that country, like, I feel like it's the obligation of all Australians, no matter who you are, citizens, to adopt that country as your, that's the place you will fight and die for. Like, that's the kind of mentality that you have to have, and that is the only way a country will improve in the net positive. If you have people in the country, and there's this argument right now where it's like, okay, if you're not white Australian, you're not Australian, and then people are saying this to me. I'm like, okay, so what do you want me to do? You want me to be here? You want me to accept that I'm not, Australian? You don't want me to, if I'm not Australian, then why would I sing the anthem? Why would I be patriotic about this country? Why would I care about what happens in this country? Yeah. Why would I want to assimilate with people? Why would I want to? What is there for a person to do that? So, I think the opposite is important, because you get a better society when people actually, obviously ingrain and love their country. And loving your country, it's not about being right wing or conservative. You need to have. In every society, there's people who are on the left.
Absolutely.
There's people with crazy ideas. You go to Sri Lanka, for instance. There's socialists and communists and Marxists, and there's conservatives, and it's the same ideological battles that happen here. So, a country is not just about being patriotic. You can dislike your country and argue against your country and things like this, but you need to have that sense of you're fighting for something. And a lot of what happens in Australia, circling back to our earlier discussion, is the people that are fighting against Australia don't actually believe Australia should even exist. So, it's a very kind of hard discussion to have with those groups, and they are actually the more dominant group. And migrants,
well, they're more vocal anyway.
Vocal, they work more with the migrant communities, and they're indoctrinating more people into that worldview. And it's a very comfortable worldview where it's like, hey, this country, you don't owe it anything. It's going to give you stuff because, they have to, because of the evil history. These people there, these white people, who are they? They're evil. They did all these things. You're your own person. You're your own culture. Don't worry about anything. Do everything how you want to do, and it's fine. That's what it means to be an Australian. Like, that's what they're being taught, and it's insane. It's insane that it's been normalized. And these politicians are lazy. They should be, locked up for doing this, really, because that's the worst thing you can do.
Well, it's like they're giving the green light for people to treat Australia like a truck stop, as opposed to a community. Welcome to our community. It's like, rock up. The toilet's over there. Make yourself do whatever you want to do. There'll be, you get free this, or you get free that, or you get this payment if you do this. Thanks for coming, kind of thing.
And like, there has to be this, like, as people will say this sounds racist or something, but not all cultures are equal. Like, all cultures are not equal. You can't have this concept in a country like Australia where you have multiple cultures and everything's equal. It's not equal. There has to be a dominant culture and a value system. It can be a mix of a lot of different things that we've decided and agreed as a society for whatever reason, for history, whatever. But there has to be a dominant type of thing that people fit into. Devoid of that is when you have chaos. And that is what we have today. We have a bit of chaos where one part of the country, like, you go to one suburb and it's like this other country. You go to, the city and it's like, a mini Asia because it's all Chinese and Indians there, the students and everything. You go to, like, parts in Noble Park or Dandenong now, it's all kind of Afghanistani people there. And we've always had enclaves of people. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's become more and more like that.
It's very separated now.
And no one.
St. Albans is all Vietnamese.
And no one's been pushed together. No one's been pushed to, like, you're all the one people. Be together. That's gone out the window. It's all kind of you can do whatever you want type thing, and it doesn't work. And that's why you have these failings. That's my belief, anyway.
Absolutely.
Hey, I've got a little story, and then I want to ask you about it. A friend of mine, well, no longer really a friend, but she was appalled that I was going to all these illegal protests. And she said to me, because I said, and I think it was just after they'd become legal, and we had one of the biggest turnouts ever, and it's disputed if it was 500,000 or 1 million people, but it was huge. And I was up on the stage there as well, filming it quite a bit. I'll have to go through that footage one day or another. But anyway, she's arguing with me, and she goes, do you realize that those parades, those protests, are organised by the Pride Boys? And I'm like, who the fuck are the Pride Boys? I did not know who they were. So I looked it all up, and I'm like, this is absolute bullshit. Like, I didn't see anyone. And okay, if you actually went to those protests, you would see that it's multicultural. There's people, and I go, well, what about Rukshan? And she goes, he's a white supremacist.
You wouldn't want to.
You're a white supremacist, bro.
So you're a white supremacist. I go, how the fuck does that work? She goes, well, you can be a different color and still be a white supremacist. And I know that has been the case in history, but it's just so fucking absurd that they make things like that up. So I want to ask you right now, are you part of the Pride Boys, and are you a plant?
A white supremacist.
Well, I mean, if you go on my X today and you see me talking about these kind of topics, I am very openly attacked by the white supremacists and the neo-Nazi adjacent type groups and white nationalists or whatever. Like, I'm openly attacked, but I've never kind of because what happens in that protest environment, it's kind of like a free for all because everyone kind of comes. But what I found during COVID was there wasn't really a dominant group, like you said. It was very diverse.
Yeah.
And the only thing that kind of tied people together, regardless of all the their differences, was the fact that they were all there because they were opposed to, for whatever reason, what the government was doing, and they felt like this is the way that they were going to deal with that particular issue through protest, and that's why they were there. There was really no kind of organizing. Yes, people would put up a banner or something, and maybe a group would take charge of that, but no one really knew the political affiliations of people. Those were things that were not discussed. It was not discussed whether you were a Marxist or a white supremacist, or no one really. There was bigger issues than that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you were faced with a bigger issue than that, because there was no just because you were a particular group of person didn't mean the police were going to leave you alone. Like, everyone was one at that particular moment. So it's a very humbling moment for people when they're faced with these kind of odds against the state, that regardless of these differences, there are occasions where everyone comes together from different backgrounds for the same cause. And that's why you're seeing the fracturing today. If you talk about the freedom movement, for instance, and you see a lot of this fracturing of the movement, that is because during the time of COVID, those differences that people innately have in terms of their ideological views didn't matter as much.
Yep.
And once you take away the uniting factor of the opposition to government tyranny during COVID, then sure, when people start talking to each other and share their different ideas, I'm a Trump supporter, I like Albanese. When you start hearing people's other ideas, you're like, I don't actually like this person. I don't want to be associated with them. And we've seen this a lot in the freedom movement, and we've seen these fractures, and we've seen
that's a good point. Actually,
it kind of dissipate because there are times in history where your differences do not matter, and you're there for one common cause, and all types of people, the worst and the best of society, might be there. But COVID was something that didn't discriminate in terms of the impacts of what the government did. It impacted everyone. So of course, all types of people would be there. And no, I'm not a white supremacist whatsoever. That's kind of how they try to diminish.
It's the brush.
Your voice.
They want to paint the brush.
That's how they try to explain away the fact that, hey, he doesn't look like a normal white person, but he's doing these things. How can we create distrust around him as well? Well, we can be like, well, he's one of those kind of, brown Sri Lankan white supremacists.
Could you imagine? How ridiculous!
It's just ridiculous, and
it is. It is because it's because they don't have an argument. They can't come up with one. All their regurgitated hit points that they have that they've been given from their own echo chamber don't work in whatever particular scenario. So that's when they usually turn on the Nazi racism thing. Yeah. And when it's a white person, it works very well. And when it's not, they've got to come up with some weird thought gymnastics to get around the issue. The fact
look, I mean, it's definitely overused, and there is problems with extremism, and there is this idea that I believe you should confront those things. It's not about free speech. It's not about stopping people from expressing their views. But if there's bad ideas out in society, and you believe they're a bad idea, then you should challenge those ideas. So
of course,
I don't think the ideas around white supremacy or Nazism and things like this are conducive to a prosperous Australia in the future. So I argue against those concepts, and I kind of, in a way,
I agree. I absolutely agree.
And I battle against those people because I feel like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm fighting for my country, and that includes the government. It includes people in the far left. It includes maybe people on the far right who might be white supremacists or whatever. Because they're all bad ideas. That's what I personally think, and other people might share those same views, and it's completely fine. And it's just overused, obviously, and it's used as a label to attack people. But there are actually people with those views as well.
Yeah.
This comes to me too. I took a screenshot right at the start of "It's me, you fool," is the person who asked the question. Question to Rukshan: what are his thoughts on Sam Newman and his comments about the podcaster who then backpedaled on, and then Avi putting on the Jewish cap on Sam Newman. It's not grammatically too right, but
Yeah,
I'm guessing they're just asking what you thought of, and his comment about the podcaster who then backpedaled on, and then Avi putting the Jewish cap on Sam Newman. So I'm guessing the podcast that Sam Newman
scenario.
did.
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, Sam Newman, he's always involved in some type of controversy.
He's controversial.
That's kind of his brand. But I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. That's just kind of what he does. So, for him to interview those guys, I think it's completely reasonable. The media talks about them all the time, and if someone wants to interview them, and I think Sam Newman did a fairly reasonable job of letting those guys share their views. Which is important, because I think it's good to hear what they're actually saying, because you want people to hear their ideas. Like, I want people to hear what they're saying, because then I can argue against those ideas. So Sam Newman,
you don't have to agree with them just because you've heard them, and that's the nanny state thinks we're going to all be like,
he let them speak. I felt like he was kind of condescending and mocking them throughout the thing and challenging them in his own way that people might not understand if you don't follow Sam Newman, the way he does things. And I thought overall, like, regardless of the criticism that he got, it was a fairly a good back and forth between these kind of extreme views that are out there in society, and Sam Newman gave it some airtime so people can make up their own minds. He got a bit of flack for it from the media, and they're going to do that anyway, because they attack him for whatever he does anyway. And when you include kind of these Nazi kind of elements that they talk about in the media, it's just easy things for them to write about. Why wouldn't they? Right? Why wouldn't like, it's just an easy story for them. So, and then he kind of dealt with the backlash a little bit, and I think he tried to clarify some points, because what I saw happening was those groups then took those interview clips of him and they spliced it in such a way which made it look like he was endorsing their views, and he was also one of them. And I think that's what he took a lot of offense to, because this is the danger in giving platforms. This is the danger in giving platforms to these individuals. Like, they want me to, they're always messaging me, debate this person, debate them. If you think your ideas are so great, debate them. And the issue with debates is, especially when you do it with people who might have, not the best decorum when it comes to these things, they will take things and edit things and try to portray you in a certain way, which just happens all the time, I know. But it's another extreme when you take someone like Sam Newman, put clips of him talking, put clips of and then put up a post saying, hey, look, he's one of us now. And, that really, he's given them an opportunity to come there to interview with him. And then they've taken that and they've abused that relationship to make him look like one of them. And it shouldn't be that way. Like, you know what I mean? There should be some type of decorum. And normally, like, I'm doing this interview with you guys right now. I don't have any, suspicions that you're going to take this out of context to me in the way you see me, but like as who I am.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Newman got really offended by the way that they carried on, implying that he's also a Nazi, he's also one of them, he wants to join them, and he's always been like them. And I think he's not. And
that the other media ran with it instead of seeing what they did for themselves. Of course,
they used that against him. The media used that against him, and everyone on social media, of course, used that against him. And if it was I'm being completely honest here, if I was engaged in a political debate and it was someone doing that to Albanese, I might even, consider like,
you'd make jokes about it.
Look at Albanese, what an idiot. He's one of these kind of, far left Antifa types. Like that happens on social media. And I think Sam Newman was offended by that. And then, of course, Avi Yemeni, he's where there's controversy, you'll find Avi.
That's his brand. That's his brand as well, obviously.
That's his brand as well. So, and you have these extremes. These extremes in terms of the Nazis interviewing with Sam, and then Avi, obviously the opposite in the sense of him being Jewish and kind of being opposed to a lot of their views, then interviewing Sam and then putting the kippah on him and things like this. But if you watch those exchanges, and you don't take it as seriously as, kind of there's some sort of conspiracy and there's some sort of control over Sam. It's more of like this kind of light-hearted, almost like a joke kind of. It's like an icebreaker almost. Hey Sam, they said you're a Nazi. Here, I'm going to put the Jewish, the kippah on you, and look, hey, you're one of us now. And it's kind of like just a playing off what happened. And some people understand that. Some people might not understand that, and some people, obviously, online, you can take those kind of things way out of context, and that's what happens. So, like, this is normally most stories are just normal conversations or a bit of fun, these kind of images. Sam Newman, he converted to Judaism, and he's like, going the complete opposite way, and I mean. That's just how it is. Like, you can't do anything about the way that people. People.
I only watched the first 15 minutes of the interview with Sam Newman because I was actually interested, because I was like, are these guys being painted as Nazis and they're actually not, and they're just patriots?
Or are they for real Nazis?
Yeah,
I think they were for real Nazis.
Watched it, and I thought it was great for me because I was like, all right, let's hear what they've got to say. And then Sam Newman just goes, right, so what do you think of Adolf Hitler? And they're like, oh, he's a great guy. And then they just totally lost me, because then I go, well, they are Nazis.
Well, this is the thing, right? So, like, those guys, like, whatever you want to say about them, they're actually very honest and open about their views.
Yeah.
They don't try to hide their views or sugarcoat them in that way. There is a bit of intellectual trickery in terms of they won't come out and say, hey, we're Nazis. But if you ask them, do you like Hitler? They'll be like, yeah, well, Hitler wasn't the bad guy. Are you a Nazi? No, but they'll have a birthday cake for Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, there is that kind of little bit of mystery to exactly who they are. Because
they don't sell the whole farm. They just
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. No, I don't know why they just don't go the whole way and just like say it. Because some of them do. Some of them very openly do, of course. But they do play that kind of middle ground game sometimes when it comes to certain types of interviews and certain interactions. And in the case of Sam Newman's, they did come. I wouldn't even say mask off, but they were just honest about their views and their plans. Let's get rid of 40% of Australians who are not white, like citizens, not like illegal immigrants and stuff. They were saying we have to remove 40% of the population because they're not Anglo stock, like that. And they're openly, and they're not saying that like it's like they're afraid to say it or it's like some dangerous thing. They're just like, this is what we have to do.
That's our platform.
That's our platform. That's our plan. Like you're hearing it. We're not hiding it. And this is what it is. So, people have to see that for what it is and understand the psyche of these individuals. And maybe they're not going to be able to do it, but they're serious, at least in their intent within their minds, that this is a good idea.
What upsets me the most is that we people are coddled so much by, the legacy medias and I guess the government, in that they want to either censor that sort of stuff or take it away because they are so worried that as soon as any of us see or a big portion of us see what those guys are saying, we're going to jump on board with it. Like we're too silly to handle that sort of information on our own. You guys will definitely fall for it. And I mean, the reality is you see those guys speaking like that, and maybe a few people out there would be like, yeah, that aligns with exactly what I think. But the majority, and I mean the overwhelming majority of Australians, would see that and just think, wow, fuck that. Who are these guys? It really showcases how sort of not to be.
Condescending is the way that the politicians treat us. They treat us like children, and that we can't think for ourselves. I wanted to see what these guys had to say, and in 15 minutes, I was just like, "Oh, they're not nationalists. They're not patriots. They're fucking Nazis." Like,
they for instance, they talk about free speech. Like, this is the biggest thing for them right now. Is like, we're free speech, and our free speech is being impeded upon, and these hate speech laws are against us, and Rukshan doesn't support our free speech because he argues against us and so on. Like, this is what they say. But when you actually get down to it, and you ask them, should a non-white person have free speech? They'll say no. They shouldn't even be in the country. So you understand what I'm trying to say?
It's contradictions and stupidity.
Free speech. Yeah, there's free speech, but free speech for the white man. If you don't have free speech, it doesn't matter because you're not even in the equation. And really, you should be out of the country anyway. So why are you worried about free speech? It's got nothing to do with you. It's a God-given right from our, Anglo-Celtic stock. Like, this is the kind of way that they have these arguments. So you have to understand when they're screaming about free speech, then you listen to the rest of their arguments and you're like, okay, cool. It's free speech just for them. And then, like you said, when you're exposed to these ideas, because they treat white society, white people, white Australians as a monolith, they pretend as if all white people think the same, and that is not true. It is white people that have had these other ideas about the world, and we're not white supremacists and all these things. So it's a mishmash of different types of people that make white Australia. It's not just people who think that and love Hitler as much as they would love that to be the case. So definitely people have to be exposed to it. Yes, there will be people who are impressionable and maybe it might impact them in a manner that they might try to sign up or whatever. Those are kind of the risks that we deal with when it comes to free speech. And the only way that you can combat that is by having more people openly dispute their ideas and show how that's wrong and bad. So I'm glad that they're out in the open and saying these things. I'm glad they're on my page all the time telling me to go back to Sri Lanka and giving me all their plans and showing people how they're going to do it, because I want people to see that this is who these people are. You can either stand with them or you can argue against them and say that this is not the type of Australia that I want to live in. And that is a valid free speech discussion that we can have about the future of this country, whether we want to be these Hitler-loving Nazis, because of whatever reason. And you're a German there, Tom. So, you understand this more than most people, whether you want to be like that in Australia or you want to be this kind of, this advanced forward-looking culture that has this complex history of different peoples and different things. And this is what we want to do, or it's somewhere in the middle. So we have that opportunity with free speech, and I'm glad that the views are out there in the open.
And you have to have the whole conversation to get those nuances. If you only hear them say free speech and then it gets shut down, then everyone starts going, well, maybe these guys are fighting for free speech. You need to hear where they start talking about how only certain people get that free speech before you go, oh, fucking, who are these guys? You definitely know then. If you shut the speech down before it's even happened, you don't get to hear the rest of the story, and you don't get to see how crazy it really is. And you don't get to hear the responses, the rebuttals either. So it's the importance of having those discussions and fighting to have those discussions more so than fighting for them to say what they want to say, like we're all going to believe it or not. It's more, there's got to be discussions around that sort of thing so that you can argue against it and shut it down, because it's not hard to shut those sort of ideas down, to be honest. They don't hold much water, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, well, listen.
Hang on a minute. Sorry. There's a couple more things.
Just remember, man, we're hitting 2 hours, and listen, I have to cut Tom off because he'll fucking go for 7 hours straight. He will, and I every now and then I'm going to cut him off.
Look, he's calling the kettle black.
Mate, you just chill, right? What have you got? Come on, Tom. Pull it out, but then we've got to let him go, all right?
One of the viewers, from Johnny Wombat. He actually sent this before the podcast. He goes, nice one getting Rukshan on the show. He did some great reporting, coverage of dark days in Victoria. You can't fudge a good live stream, but you can go on to pretend that all the bad shit that went down never happened and that people will just forget. Freedom is not a reality in society. My question for Rukshan would be, who does he think is controlling society as we know it? That's a big fucking question.
Russ,
that's a tough question.
It is.
There's two components to it. Obviously, we as a collective, as a society, whichever direction we decide to go in, that we have some influence over this, definitely. But a greater influence, there is other powers that be. We can call them, different global entities and different bodies that, I've seen this myself firsthand when I went to Davos and World Economic Forum and stuff. There are, of course, people with a lot of influence, money, and power who are in these organizational structures that want to decide how people live. And that can be coming from something as simple as a decision about climate, or it can be coming as something, related to a war or a financial system type implementation. So these things do exist, and we're kind of coexisting, but there is a massive balance. There's there's a difference between the two. Obviously, like, we don't have the same type of power that these bigger groups have, and countries can decide whether they want to be a part of these institutions. You saw with Trump again, when he came into power, he got themselves out of the World Health Organization, the Paris Climate Accord. These are the kind of things that I'm talking about. So in itself, it's not as shady, but when you kind of combine all these things together, there are outside forces controlling the direction that we go in our country. You see this less in a developed society because generally our standard of living is pretty good. It's being tested today because life is getting a bit harder for even us in the West when it comes to housing and things like this, and we're kind of why did it become like this? Like, we didn't vote for this. You start having these thoughts and ideas. But this is not like it's maybe new to the West thinking about this, but if you go to parts of the developing world, everything is controlled by outside forces, whether it's been, the East India Company, for instance, during colonization, if you go back hundreds and hundreds of years, to now the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and these world banks, and these different programs and these different tests and vaccine tests and things that they do in different parts of the developing world. They are at the front end of copying a lot of this before even we do. So our kind of imprisonment within this system is more complicated, and it's harder to see because we enjoy such a high standard of living. But I think it's there. And we get pushed into these directions, like social security systems and social credit systems and things like this. We see it in China. We see it in China more obviously because it's done very obviously. But for us, it's kind of you're voting for it. You know what I mean? Like you and
it's moving slowly. It's moving slowly. So like right now we're good, but maybe in 10 years we won't be so good. But by that point, it's very much like prison.
Like, your kids would have grown up with digital ID, so by the time they're our age, they don't think it's any different. Like a kid growing up today with an iPad or iPhone, they don't understand that we grew up in a world where those things didn't exist. So these people understand the incremental way that the world changes over decades and decades, and they only had to push it slightly in a certain direction, and they create that particular change in the world. And that's why a force like Trump comes in. And it's like a whirlwind because he kind of fights back against some of these things which may be harmful to his country and his particular type of political ideology. And he fights back against it. And that's where you see these kind of drastic things happening around the world where, he's cutting off this USA aid stuff. And you find out they're like funding all types of trans and gay and lesbian.
I've got videos for that for later too. It's insane what they're funding.
It's like funding crazy stuff. And it's like, why are we spending billions and billions of dollars of our nation's treasure on this? And that is the kind of global world where it's all, like you said, there is an entity that controls it. You can't give it one name, you can't say it's one person, you can't say it's all these things, but there is definitely something
there's a monopoly
that's out of our control, definitely. And of course, people with a lot of money, big businesses, big infrastructure, interest in to big tech, they have a lot of influence in this sector, definitely.
It's funny with you saying about sort of our kids growing up, and it's normal for them. I heard somebody say just the other day that if there was some sort of a schooling thing that you put babies into to teach them how to walk, within one generation, everybody would assume that you can only walk if you go to that school.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Yeah, well, this is the thing. So when Trump changed this with this executive order about women can't be in men can't compete in women's sports and all this gender ideology thing, we were just like 10 years away from this becoming like the normal thing where everyone was like, well, it's just what it is.
There's always been, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we were just on like a knife's edge. So literally, like, this election in the US decided that almost for all of us, because that's how pivotal that kind of societal thing is. Because they really made that seem like it was so normal. And today, when we hear about it, it's not. It's not normal.
No, it's not.
Everyone's saying it's not. Everyone's saying it's not normal. In terms of like, there's two sexes type thing, and it's like it's not really normal. Like, yes, we can understand that there's people that feel different ways and there's different circumstances. Yes, but fundamentally, there's males and females, like that type of thing, and they're different. So that's like been normal for like thousands and thousands of years, and in a short space of time, they almost flipped that around, and we've just been saved from it. Because 10 more years, I reckon, it would have been like, the kids would have been like, oh, what's the big deal? Let's have more of this.
And then it's even harder to change if you ever need to, because it seems like you're trying to change something that's normal.
Well, it's like what the thing with multiculturalism is. It's hard to change that now.
Yes.
Once you put that in motion, whether it's a good or bad idea, once you have put that in motion, and you have multiple generations of people who have been in that thing, it is almost impossible to reverse it. And
absolutely,
you kind of have to make the best of it. So, yeah.
Incremental change, and eventually, I mean, the way that we are, generations just grow and get used to the thing. All the kids these days, they're used to mobile phones. I grew up with no mobile phone. I grew up when I was a kid, I'd have to go to my friend's house and knock on the door and say, can, whoever it is, come out and hang out? Oh, no, he's grounded, or he's not at home today. And then I'd have to ride home and just butthurt over it. And, there was no phones. I'd go home when the lights came on in the street, and that was it. Where kids now, they're like, it's normal to sit in front of YouTube. YouTube wasn't a thing until like 10, 15 years ago. It's just
kids will say that, we ask them what they want to do when they grow up. They'll be like, oh, I want to be like a YouTuber. Like, that's like, I wish I was on YouTube when it first came out, and like as a joke type thing. I wish I understood then what YouTube would become, because I would have taken it more seriously. You know what I mean? But this is kind of the world that we're in. And now people are like not saying YouTuber, they're saying like TikToker. So obviously every generation things change, and that obviously impacts the future direction of the world as well. And that's why, all these things matter. They seem so small and insignificant, but when you combine it all together, that is culture, that is society.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, I'm going to backtrack. Wayne's going to tell me off again.
Yep.
But I want to show this clip, because this is how I first became aware of you. Actually, not through the live stream. It's through this footage here. This is how I became aware of Rukshan.
Hey, is that Rukshan?
Yes, it's Rukshan.
Yeah, g'day. It's Simon from North Melbourne Police. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
Mate, I've just got a letter here that I need to give you. To come up?
Yeah, I'll come downstairs.
Can't do anything, mate. Thanks.
Hey guys, how are you? Yes, it's okay. G'day, mate. How you doing? Good. I'm Sergeant Brady from North Melbourne Police. Yeah, that's good. Just got a letter here. It's been signed by Luke Cornelius, who's the Commissioner. Yeah. Just about tomorrow's action. What's tomorrow's action? Because this is the second time that you guys have come here, right? And I feel like I'm being harassed. Because I'm not a protest organizer, I'm not a protester. Okay, that's fine. Okay? I'm not doing these things.
What are you doing?
Can you not block my wife?
What are you doing? You're here. You come into our house. What are you doing? Blocking us.
I'm a reporter.
That's fine.
Okay, I do press work. I do media work. So I don't know why the police keep coming to my house to harass me and to intimidate me, man. It's really unfair.
Intimidating you at all?
No, I feel emotional.
Okay.
Because you guys have come multiple times. This is the second time you've come to my apartment.
Second time?
Yes.
That's the last time.
Like, whatever it was last week.
Okay.
Last week on Friday.
I've just been asked to come to
This is harassment, man.
I don't think it is.
Yes, it is, because we don't organise protests. You're
Did
here.
you go to Channel 7? Did you go to Channel 9?
Maybe.
You went to them? They work all the time.
I've been asked.
I'm doing my job. I'm doing my work.
Okay.
The police, maybe they... How do you know my address?
We're the police.
I know you're the police, but why are you looking up journalists?
Why are you looking at people that work in the media? I'm a reporter, man.
I don't know why you were there.
Your name's not Rukshan. They're asking for Rukshan. You're here asking for Rukshan. You're wrong asking for Rukshan. Who the heck is Rukshan?
Disrespectful. This is an invasion of my price.
Yes,
Why?
Classic.
You're not under arrest.
You shouldn't be intimidating members of the press. You shouldn't be intimidating reporters.
Oh, well, you can make a complaint then.
I wouldn't.
We are making a complaint right now to you guys. Stop harassing us. It's like anxiety driven right now. Seeing you people at on our camera. It's disgusting.
Disrespectful.
Do not come back.
See you, fuckheads.
How's that?
Get paid for proper work that you do. This is harassment.
Victoria Police coming to my house again. Okay, I've done nothing. Everyone, you already know the story of what I do. These people continuously harass me and try to intimidate me and stop me from doing my job. I don't know what action they're talking about tomorrow. It's really frustrating. I don't know what to say. I don't know why Victoria Police keeps targeting me when I'm just trying to do my job. I really don't understand. It's just so unfair.
Well, I've got a good answer for that, and I'm guessing they didn't want what was actually happening. And like you said, Channel 7, Channel 9, did you guys serve them? And obviously they didn't.
Exactly.
Because
that's
they had
the
that
thing.
relationship where they were able to edit it, just like 60
They were putting out a narrative and you weren't. So was that just literally over? They were giving you that letter and they were harassing you?
That's not like some dumb letter written by there was the deputy commissioner or whatever, Cornelius or whatever, and it's just some dumb letter about like it's just I don't even think it was legal really. Like it had no legal weight behind it. It was like almost like this kind of like a on their letterhead and like don't turn up to, like
it was
it was all theater.
threats.
It was all theater, threats, intimidation, and it's like, why are you coming to like me? I'm not organizing these protests. If you know about me and you're watching my work, you can probably tell that I'm streaming them and I'm like doing a type of a news coverage. So at the end of the day, you are targeting people who are doing coverage of it specifically to stop them from showing it, while at the same time you are deciding to allow the mainstream media to attend with their, they have their cameraman there, they have the journalists, they have the security details, so that multiple people attend. Here, lonely me, going by myself, I'm following all their, COVID safe plans and like doing all the things that I have to do to be there, like as a journalist, so they don't harass me, like wearing a mask. I don't want to do those things, but I comply so I can do my job in that space. So I'm doing all of those things. I'm not doing anything wrong. I have all the correct paperwork, and my business is actually registered as a media company as well. So technically, they've got nothing on me, but they're still attempting to intimidate and harass. And it was those moments that made me want to keep returning and going back and back, because they shouldn't be stopping people from doing that, because that's how they end up committing all types of heinous crimes around the world. I've heard all about it through the Western media, that when the media were not there and when the Gestapo and the different police and the SS and stuff did everything in the cover of the darkness of not having anything there, that's when they did the most horrendous things. So why would I want to participate in a society like that? And why are you, as policemen, don't you have any like self-respect to maybe look at this and be like, well, we shouldn't be participating in this because this seems really wrong as a baseline.
Well, I mean, look at their behavior. Even in that video, you saw that one guy walk around behind and stand there. That's an intimidation tactic, to make you feel completely.
Yeah,
but also it was when you feel surrounded and you've got people around you, or like you feel threatened, you feel like I'm in trouble here. The way the guy was trying to be very dismissive, but he was pretending to be clever, the main cop talking, but he was genuinely saying nothing at all.
Yeah.
He just came across as extremely condescending and brainless. Yeah. But he had really nothing to say.
I don't think they anticipated like the way that I would argue my case. Like very very passionately like, "Why are you guys here? Like, don't you think
Yeah, I
you're doing
love
something
that.
wrong?" I think, and
Which
we've got to
actually
put those
brings me
questions there.
back to a comment from Martin Taylor. Why did you even open your home to them? Well, I'm glad you did, Rukshan, because you wouldn't have seen that footage.
Because I knew they'd come the week. Yeah, they'd come the week before, and I was like, these things have to be shown to people. These things have to be filmed, and other people have to see it because they'll never believe it otherwise.
Yeah.
And you have to put them in his own. I don't. There's probably like two lovely cops, whatever, and they're just doing their job, whatever. But they don't understand the system that they've been indoctrinated into against their own citizens. And they don't understand the very dangers of the things that they're participating in. They could have been told to anything.
Some of these police look back on their actions and they see something like it because they're part.
They should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed. Like they would. I think they'd be embarrassed. Yeah,
they didn't join up to the police force to be lapdog letter deliverers for threats for people that are just showing what's going on.
Most normal people would be embarrassed about that. Like
yes, absolutely.
And I don't think they'd be like they'd regret what they did, but they'd be embarrassed. Like that they were kind of they must feel betrayed as well.
I had conversations with police during the major lockdowns when all the trade lockdowns happened, and there was the 1 week where no trades could go. The building site that I was working on, I was supervising at the time, got broken into and robbed mercilessly. They stripped all the wires, they took our toolboxes, they took everything. And then obviously when I did a drive-by and saw it, I had the crime police came in to do fingerprints and take reports and stuff. And that was during the first of the real trade protests when they were just starting up. They hadn't really kicked off yet, but they were sort of bubbling. And those boys came in and they went, "We don't want to be involved in the shit that's going on in the city right now. We're embarrassed by it." They told me the whole story. They were over it. They didn't want anything to do with it. They knew that it was wrong, and they were choosing not to be involved. And they were, they were embarrassed by what was happening, and they didn't agree with it. And they were very open with telling me about it. And that was really
like that.
Yeah, you would have. I was going to say, I'm sure you would have had a lot like that. So you really can't paint police with all the same brush.
No.
Unfortunately, there are some in there.
There were a few that were taking great pleasure from kicking people around and doing their kind of violence.
I saw the blood first. I saw the blood first in this, especially when Matt Lawson got shot.
Yeah, so there is that, and you find that, of course, every time when these kind of conflicts happen, there are people that are willing to do the worst to each other, and it's not every police person, and there will be many people who had doing a lot of self-reflection following that time period, obviously, but they were also impacted by it, and we don't know, like, if you look at the diminishing numbers of people in the police force in Victoria, it must have had a massive mental impact on people that they've just left the industry altogether, So
I think it's going to take probably a decade or more to win back the trust of the Victorian people.
If ever.
I know that there's a lot of Victorians that
I think it's going to be pretty tough.
There's a lot of Victorians that think the actions of the police were justified, but
yes.
I mean, I think it was Avi that actually loved to pose the question, well, why was BLM allowed, the Black Lives Matter allowed to do it the week before, go on a protest?
Yeah.
And people are like, it was legal it was legal a week before. And he's like, no, it wasn't. And they bent the knee. And people have their minds blown by that. And it is a mind-blowing thing. And to me, it's even if it was legal or not, it was just a week before that. It was legal. The virus just, it picked up.
It's all the ludicrous kind of hypocrisies that are present when you don't have any kind of moral clarity or ethical standards even in terms of how you enforce these things. And we see that all the time, and it's a shame, really.
Okay. I just a question that I wanted to ask too. How many times did you actually get pepper sprayed? I think it was 3 times, was it?
I think
Or
it was
2?
3 times, probably. Yeah, 3
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the
What was that
party bottle? You
experience
know, they
like?
pull out the big party bottle and just
I
douse
don't
everyone?
know. I don't know what it was, but yeah.
You don't know what brand it was?
Nah.
Off shelf. It was the home brand, the cheap bastards. It all stings the same amount, I'm sure. Look, mate, thank you very much for coming on.
No worries, guys.
It's been awesome having a chat, and just everything you're doing. Once again, it's what we live for to see these days.
I think this is a lot of your footage, is that right?
Oh, they're shooting rubber pellets! That's some crazy stuff that's going on here. The police started. They pulled out some sort of gun with rubber pellets or whatever there is. Empty ammunition. And they were just firing these pellets into the crowd. They started spraying everyone indiscriminately. Media, doesn't matter who it was. Everyone was being sprayed and just, it's just chaos here. And I think it's completely unnecessary chaos because the people have already gathered here. They're already protesting. This is just a show of force, a show of control.
Yeah.
Only a couple of hundred people.
Yeah, it's only a couple of hundred.
Last year, she's a nurse. She caught COVID. She doesn't want the vaccine, and look what they've done to.
Fuck. That is just some of the footage that you caught for us, Rukshan.
Yeah,
is just
intense.
Fucking amazing, man. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been lovely.
There's one last question, just one.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's one of the viewers wanted me to ask. I took a screenshot of it at the start. What does Rukshan define as an Australian?
What do I define as an Australian? That's a very I've probably been defining it all throughout this conversation.
Yes, I think so. I don't think you really have to answer that. I think you've been talking about.
Yeah, I think I've
that clip we played at the start. Also,
yeah, I think that gives it away a little bit. What I think.
Yeah.
But I really think a country is made up of its people that are in that space at that time who are committed to that country becoming prosperous. Like, what else are we doing otherwise? Like, what is the point of all of this if we're just kind of in a space and don't want to have anything to do with it? Like, you have to have some type of commitment to it.
How much of all of that, just that last clip, how much of that was your footage, do you think?
That was all my footage.
That was all of it. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all my footage. Yeah.
Well, it's been amazing having you on, Rukshan. Anytime you want to come back on, we'd love to have you on, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just
Lovely
gone for
being on,
2.5 hours and we didn't
really
run out of anything. And if you want us to give a plug to anything, Nick Patterson, he's going to go in a political party. We're starting his political party. We just gave that a plug.
Awesome.
But
there you go.
Anything you want us to give a plug in the future?
I've got no plug, but guys, if you want to follow me, you can find me on X at The Real Rukshan. That's where I kind of hang out these days with Elon Musk and the rest of the crew, like a bit more free speech up that way. So, but yeah, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that. But I predominantly use X at the moment. So yeah, lovely chatting with you guys, and thanks for all the questions, everyone, and for watching as well. It's been fun, and there's lots of interesting questions as well. So yeah, hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
I'm going to say you're a humble hero, Rukshan. I just want to say you're a humble hero. That's the way that's the vibe I get, man. So,
absolutely.
Thanks for everything you've done, mate.
Thanks for your hard work and thanks for your honesty, mate. It's refreshing. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thanks, buddy. See ya, mate. Cool. That was amazing. That was really fucking good.